Well, that is how you start a series. My goodness, Gen.G and T1 pull out all the stops on map number 1. And if that is any indicator, the rest of this series is going to be an absolute banger. In the words of Michael Scott, bippity boppity, gimme the zoppity. Doug, Simo, what a ridiculous first map in this series. Doug, why don't you just walk me through what it is we just witnessed?
Without all the bippity and the boppity and the zippity and the zoppities, as you so eloquently put, I think it was just the resilience out of T1. I know I mentioned it prior to the break, but they held strong when nothing was going their way. Gen.G was starting to look like the Gen.G of old, where they had rattled off 8 rounds in a row. And then it was really interesting. Simo and I were chatting about this prior to getting back on the broadcast. It was a technical pause. And whatever happened during that pause was exactly what T1 needed. It was at that point that everything just flipped. And there, again, no telling what it was that went down. I'd love to follow up on that and figure out what it was that was said. But that point was when everything flipped. And that's when T1 was able to put Gen.G away. That was really impressive.
You know, I saw a few highlight reel moments in there as well for Skadoodle, which was nice to see. We mentioned, Simo, how earlier on in the beta stages of the game, when he first joined the team, it was a little bit lackluster. Maybe because Skadoodle's traditional style of opping in CS was a little bit more stationary, more of like a turret, and not necessarily that mobile op that excels in that position of a jet. Do you agree that Skadoodle's starting to like at least feel a little bit more comfortable in that role and in that position, Simo?
Yeah, 100%. The fact that you're putting him on a duelist now instead of the Sova, which he was just stuck to, and if you're a Sova, you're just encouraging that turret meme. You're just going to be shooting not only op shots, but darts and bolts and all and nuts and whatever else. You're throwing it all away while you're just standing there as a turret for your team. But the fact that T1 have realized and recognized, okay, we need more supportive staff, and we need to take Skadoodle off of that supportive staff and give him a duelist in his hands. Whatever the map is, he's not always playing Jet, but he's still able to have a strong impact. And now he has the mobility with the Jet to op like a madman and get involved and get active. And that is what T1 needed. They needed to unlock Skadoodle and find the correct support staff. And that is in AZK, that is in Dazed, to support Skadoodle and Brax, because he also has some incredible highlight moments as well where he flanks. Doesn't always work out, but sometimes it's worthy to watch.
Taking a look at this map pool, Simo, as well, you know, Gen.G moving on over to Haven now. This is their map selection, so yeah, sure, they're down 1-0, but that first map was so incredibly close. You know, that could have potentially gone either direction. Do you think that Gen.G can clap back on T1 and force us to a third map here?
They could. It's possible. The only problem is that while Gen.G have great statistics to look at during the open qualifier, in fact, this is their map. There's a lot of North American teams that credit them to a lot of executes on the B side, on the C side. Like Gen.G were the ones that brought some of that to the forefront in the early days of the beta. We have no idea what this new T1 roster looks like on Haven because they ban it every chance that they get in the open qualifier. Are they hiding something? I don't know. Are they abysmal on it? There's only one way to find out and play this map out, because I have no idea.
I mean, that's a great question, right? You know, we talk about the unknown factors, the unknown variables. What we do know about T1 is that they have some brilliant minds on the team. Obviously, looking at a character like Dazed, there's a lot of intelligence there, and definitely a cerebral leader, the one that likes to play a little bit of mind games. So there's a possibility that Haven could be potentially that ace in the hole for T1. It's interesting that they wouldn't have you know, maybe pulled it out a little bit sooner, but you know, this is the time. I mean, this is an elimination match. The loser of this is out, and the winner moves on into the playoffs as the number 2 seed out of this group. So T1 has an opportunity here to potentially 2-0 Gen.G. And Doug, I got to be honest, that would be incredibly surprising, because we watched that open qualifier and we were like, wow, Gen.G looks revitalized with the Sean pickup. To see them fall in this fashion would be disappointing.
Yeah, I think disappointing is probably the best way to put it. And Gen.G looked the strongest that they ever had when we were watching them in the open qualifier. I think one of the things I want to keep a very close eye on, you mentioned Dazed, Bach. So you look at Ascent, you look at Bind, he plays Sova, right? That's fine. On Split, he pivots over to a duelist. He plays Raze. So when you think about that on Split, they bring 2 duelists to the action here, to the fold. On Haven, as has been well discussed, we haven't seen them play it. Is Daze going to be on a duelist? Is he going to rely on the information gathering from Sova? It's tough to say, but I think that is an interesting wrinkle that I want to keep a close eye on. We know that Daze can frag out with the best of them. but is he going to be set up to be able to do that? Is he going to be given the tools to be able to do that on a map that is often a surprise?
And then on the other side, like you mentioned, the Sova. I feel like Sova is a must pick on that map. I feel like Sova is a necessary pick. We see some teams rocket Killjoy on Haven. Will we see a Killjoy come out potentially? I don't think it's the most common pick at all. I think that you don't really see Killjoy picked too frequently on the map. But, Sova is definitely one I feel like almost every team puts in their repertoire. But I guess we'll just have to wait and find out. I'm curious. I'm tickled with anticipation as we wait to see. We're just about ready to jump into that game as well. So real quickly, predictions after that first game. Simo, who do you think is going to take map number 2?
We're going to map 3. We're going to map 3, I think, without question. I think even though without knowing what T1 is capable of on this map, we're going to map 3. Gen.G is not going to go down without a fight.
Doug?
Yeah, I echo that entirely. Again, not knowing what T1 can bring, we do know what Gen.G can bring, and while it wasn't enough against Complexity, we've seen how good they are on this map. Win also started to warm up, as we saw at the end of that last map, so this Gen.G squad is by no means out.
I mean, most people fear the unknown, but I think I'm going to roll the dice and disagree with both of you. I think that T1 could potentially take the series here, but it's going to be very, very close. Expect another close game, potentially going to overtime. I'm happy to be wrong, but Doug, Simo, game's ready to kick off. Let's find out if I'm an idiot or not.
I think you and I both know the answer to that question, Doug. Come on.
I wasn't going to touch that one. You can have that. Either way, ladies and gentlemen, we're here. We've made it onto Haven. T1 versus Gen.G. This is an elimination best of 3. T1 has the lead. They're also going to be on the defending side. They're also going to get the opening frag on the round. Win on the sideline for the rest of the pistol.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to take this this map very carefully for T1. We know what Gen.G is capable of. We have to keep a closer eye on T1. This is the first look. If T1 managed to make it through this series and go into the playoffs not having an entire repertoire of Haven maps to review, that bodes incredibly well for them. But this is the first look, and a lot of teams are going to be looking for opportunities to exploit, especially if T1 don't make it, and we're going to be looking at the close qualifier, moving on for the second half of UG.
Well, Gen.G slipped their way onto the C site. They got the spike down as well. Now it looks like they're going to rotate back. There is a tripwire to ensure that nobody's flanking around, but they begin to assume their post plants. See a couple of pings coming out as AZK tries to cause a little bit of ruckus. The paranoia and the smoke come out as well to give them entry onto the site. Skadoodle and Player 1 are able to trade a kill apiece as the clock continues to tick away. Player 1 from that anchor finally gets taken out. A 2v2 here for it. Daze is starting to defuse. The pings are out. The body block was there, and he's able to take care of him as well. What a strong start from Gen.G.
Yeah, Guimond wrapped around and came in from the garage side, so even if they find that pick there, I believe onto Mikael, Guimond was there to stop and really cause a problem for AZK, because even if he finds that pick, he's got to double back through the smoke, and he has no idea where Guimond is coming from, right? Because all of their attention is towards that cubby side, so very well played there from Gen.G. I also have to say that we do know this map statistically to just be the battle of attrition of who can hit the C site the hardest on their attacking half. And guess where Gen.G are going for the second round in a row? It's the C site. So we'll see how T1 react to this. They're already starting to pull resources over, so they may at least respond in kind with their less than desirable weaponry.
Yeah, as you just mentioned, they did not buy up. They did not force. They're just bringing in pistols into the next round. A Ghost and Frenzy, but again, Gen.G not showing anything different. Skadoodle gets the opening frag again for T1.
Good opening start here at least, and Spider thought it was the wrong jet, but now he gets involved on the site. Can't find the shots there onto Mikael. It's all down to Brax. Once again, he's tiptoeing through the tulips on his lonesome in the courtyard. Gen.G will get the spike down.
Spike planted.
It's a 1v3 with some injured members on Gen.G, so if Brax can find some 1v1s, which against Gen.G you don't normally find because they stack together, they clump up like some bees on honey. And it's going to be very difficult to try to separate this roster. First one's going to come through. The shoulder peek comes in from Mikael, and Iman will swing just like that. Gun round up and coming here for T1, an opportunity to find their first round on the board.
And that's, I've talked about how fundamental Gen.G can be. We just saw that, right? Just there. A little peek of the shoulder. to get T1 to thinking that they've isolated a gunfight, that they can go ahead and do something there. Brax keeps focused on that side, and it was a classic bait and switch. As soon as Brax swings out, bam, Gen.G's there. The support staff is there to take care of him. Gen.G starting strong here, 2-0, but as we saw on the last map, you can never tell. You can never tell what's gonna happen.
Especially with this T1 roster, there's no idea. Gen.G probably obsessed with the idea that a B site hit can be painful. After Complexity ran it back several times on the attack, and it was a painful hit, but Gen.G a little scared to push in. And to be fair, rightfully so. There's a lot of utility down, a lot of smokes. It's really difficult to see what's going on the site itself. Yeah, there's a camera there, but I believe that may be Brax's camera. I'm not quite sure.
It is.
Yeah. Once again, the C-side hit through the garage. Gen.G stacked together. Let's see how T1 defend this with Spider and AZK on the site.
You see a couple of members of Gen.G certainly worse for wear. They're weaker. They took some of the damage early on in the opening kerfuffle, but they've pushed all the way through. T1 has to be careful here. Wint's going to be flanking around from behind. He spots one, is able to take him out. Spider's out. So is AZK. Gen.G with firm control of the C site.
Yeah, this gun round for T1 not panning out quite well. If we recall, Complexity took Gen.G down 10-2 in the first half, and logically, this map is attacker-sided. There's 3 sites. It takes a very long time for the defense to rotate over, so I'd imagine Gen.G are going to really start off hot. And how will T1 stop the bleeding? That is the bigger question. They're going to save 3 weapons into the next round. They've got the triple loss bonus coming in. 2,900 will be in the pockets of several members in that upcoming round. T1, they bleed it around. And to be fair, I mean, we saw the same thing in the second half of Ascent. Gen.G started off with, what, 6 rounds in a row? And T1 just snapped. Something changed, and they started to swing things back around. So we might see something similar here, but I don't know.
We'll see. At least if you're a fan of T1, you certainly, excuse me, don't want to get to that point where you've lost 8 rounds in a row and it requires a tactical pause and a bit of a pep talk from the coaching staff. However, if you're Gen.G, you're pretty pleased with how things have started off, right? 3 rounds in a row, you're still carrying a couple of Spectres. Mikael hasn't died, neither has Guimon. They're sitting pretty right now, and you're poised to be able to really pile it on here if you're able to get one more round. And again, folks, we don't know what to expect from T1 here, because they don't have any reps on this during the qualifier, the open qualifier, or the close qualifier for that matter. Skadoodle trying to play this tight corner.
Nice.
Yeah, he doesn't know he's there. He don't know he's there. Yeah, he gets one. He gets the second one as well. It's a bloodbath. Skadoodle's down to 11 health. He's going to dash away and gets away with his life.
He needed the help. He's still alive. Daze was just there to try to support him, but he will end up falling down to the 3v3. You love to see that support. Skadoodle hides in the 50. Daze says, there's no one here. I'm the only one here. I'm running away. But still, they bring it down to a 3v3. Paranoia to help out with the player backside. They drop down. They take out Win, and that's actually going to help out immensely. But player 1 is still alive. And now it's all down to him. 16 HP backside. Brax through the smoke. That's what I'm talking about. T1 answer back. It's an expensive round. The heroics from Skadoodle pay off.
Yeah, it was so well played. That little bait that you mentioned, leading Gen.G, excuse me, into thinking that there was no one there. And it was because the drone was shot out instantly, right? As soon as it peeks around the corner, it was taken out. If there's a second or maybe 2 longer that the drone survives, they spot Skadoodle. He gets exposed. They know where he is. They know where all of the members of T1 are at that point, and there's no big play. But because that drone got taken out instantly, he was kept concealed. They had no idea that he was there, so of course they're going to swing because they think, well, it's a 3v1. We've got everything we want. And then they get just absolutely sucker punched in that situation. So very well played by T1. That led to their first round win, a very important one. But again, they're still down 2 rounds here.
What an interesting position here from Skadoodle. Unfortunately for him, nobody is there. They just kind of peek in. set up some tripwire utility because they don't want any flanks to come through. The Owl Drone, aka Hedwig, will clear out the long side, Banana, and find nothing. So Skadoodle still holding down, but now the site hit for the B site is going to be problematic. Brax has to make sure that he can stop them. They're trying to take out the camera. They do, but you hear the movement in the cyber cage. They can't really push in because the audio cues will let Brax know someone's on the site. I need help. And so that's why T1 haven't moved a muscle, because they pulled back out for Gen.G.
Yeah, it was a really good camera that Brax had been setting up there to eliminate that chaos play that we talked about, right? There's Gen.G drops the smoke, they funnel in, they get the spike down, and then they pull out, and it's just chaos. As Gunfire shoots in between all the smokes, that camera was there to essentially negate that play, but it finally gets cleared out. Gen.G are going to get onto the site. Player 1 and Win have already taken out 2. The neural theft is there as well to give them information, and Gen.G cause a bunch of ruckus on B and then rotate over to C.
Yeah, they did have Guimond over there playing point. Skadoodle's going to find a pick of some of those members rotating off of the B site. So now it's a 3v3. Oh, Win misses such a crucial shot. Now the Blade Storm comes up. Win's just trying to run and hide. Play ring around the Rosie, but Spider's there to accept him with his open arms. Mikael now the last player standing. They still need to defuse the spike. Spider finds out where the last player is located, and the paranoia is unfortunately deadly. They do trade, but still T1 manages to find a round. And from what we thought initially, Gen.G starting off to a hot start, T1 have been able to bring it back within 1. And so this question mark of what Haven is going to be like, I'd imagine a close match between these two teams.
Yeah, so far so good, at least if you're a fan. Player 1 has started off very strong at 7-3, and AZK certainly having himself a good start to the map as well. The thing is, Simo, that round looked really good for Gen.G, right? Like, T1's counter to that play was exposed. It got taken care of. Gen.G had everything set up for it, but then the push through, I think it looked like at the push through and the rotate over to C, yeah, they had Guimond there, but that's when things kind of went sideways. And then Win, unfortunately, not able to land that op shot, really turned things on its head. Skadoodle once again going aggressive. You mentioned how interesting of a spot that was. The blades take care of Skadoodle.
Yeah, the flick just not fast enough, not strong enough. And now Skadoodle will sit this one out. Dazed needs support from AZK to play this 50. They see, okay, op shot, all right. All right, well, Skadoodle's dead, so no one's playing the 50. Psych, that's the wrong number. They only find 1, though. AZK will fall. But Brax is on the site, and Brax is here to play. That's the case. Here's one come through. And back out again, down to the 2v2. They're going to hightail this spike either out of here. With the TP, it tells us it's going to be the C site. And now T1 are going to have to play retake with Sean hightailing it over towards that C site.
Yeah, Guimond is going to be able to get the spike down. Sean slowly getting his way over there, but as you mentioned, he's going to have to hightail it. There they see that the resources have arrived. And Guimond and the rest of Gen.G both playing off the site. You see them hanging out over in Cubby. The spike is planted that way, so if something goes sideways, they can peek. They've got the pings, so they can shoot it out. This is a good setup for Gen.G here.
Smoke down, spike is ticking. You see that it's accelerated, which means T1 need to get involved. That's going to be the tap. See how long they can provide support here for Spider. He's up to half.
Oh, no.
It's starting to tick.
Way.
Pros don't fake. They don't. What? They just don't. They don't fake. Spider joining the roster here for T1 lands his mark on the team. You know, we've been very critical of Spider throughout the group stage, right? Performance against Complexity was a big question mark. We had highlighted this hit scan player making the jump from Overwatch to Valorant to say, hey, give this man a duelist, give this man something that he can work with. No. Team needs him. He performs, and boy was that necessary to shake up Gen.G and tie us up 3-3.
I just don't understand. I don't understand. Brax was taking, I believe it was Brax, as Daze gets the opening kill onto player 1 with the Hunter's Fury. Brax was there as a bot, as a meat shield, essentially. He got cleaned up. The pings were there. They knew where the spike was planted. I don't understand how they didn't take care of Spider there. Either way, he's able to steal that right out of under their noses. And as you said, knotted up at three apiece, excuse me. Very well played by T1. 4-on-4 here early on. in the 7th round.
There's an early pick from the Hunter's Fury, as we had highlighted, and of course this push in towards the garage is a little bit problematic, because now T1 have actually managed to make it onto the site, but unfortunately they can't really make it work. This is just down to Skadoodle and Brax. They're going to likely hightail it out of there, maybe not even play for exits. Well, Brax is in a position to do so, but Skadoodle is too low. He's going to pull back. T1 are going to give Gen.G back the lead. It's still close, closer than what we had originally seen in that previous series on Haven. And that means that this is going to be a hard-fought battle from both sides. T1 happy enough to throw this round away. Fortunately, the heroics from Gen.G, they were able to hold down the site. The Rolling Thunder was used to try to get those players out of position, but T1 weren't in position to push in. Skadoodle and company just came a little too late, and they couldn't capitalize on that ultimate, so that one's going to go to the wayside.
Yeah, and they were able to get the spike down right after it, or excuse me, right before, too. So it just wasn't able to provide enough chaos on that site. But I think the important thing to note is, as we mentioned, a couple of guns are going to be brought back in from T1. They've got the operator. Brax and AZK are both going to bring rifles in as well. Certainly not that most ideal armor, but they are going to have something to work with. Gen.G has shown that they can hit the C site successfully a couple of times, and once again, that's where they're inching towards.
They've got a couple of different looks. It's either through the garage, or they split off the B site and they just rush through Link and garage together. But the 5-stack push from Gen.G is it's a pretty standard push. We see it quite a bit on any site. On any site, they just brute force their way in, and with their raw skill, they determine the outcome and the pace. Daze trying to escape the Hunter's Fury. We'll see if he gets tagged up again. He will.
Yeah.
That's going to be Mikael answering back for that last Hunter's Fury. Now the site's controlled. Smokes are down. Utility is down. T1 are stuck once again in a dry retake scenario against Gen.G.
Well, it was really interesting. Skadoodle started with the operator on C and then rotated back towards A, and sure enough, as he was rotating away, Gen.G used the Hunter's Fury to get onto the site. By the time he was able to pull back, it was too late. The spike was down. Remember, folks, this is also like a weird gun round for T1. They've got a couple of Phantoms and Operators, but then they have 2 pistols the rest of the way. They don't have full guns to work with, and that you presume that that's going to give him the disadvantage, but AZK looking to tip the scales back in favor of T1 as he gets 1. It's going to drop down to a 3v2, however, still in favor of Gen.G. The clock continues to go down. Gen.G in control. T1 rotate away. The spike is going to go off, and Gen.G are going to take a 2-round lead.
Yeah, I don't know what T1 can do to stop this C-site hit. They didn't really have a whole lot of presence towards the garage that round, so I'd imagine that might play a factor. But Haven essentially is, in summary, who can hit the C site the hardest on their attacking half. We identified that early on, and it seems like T1 just don't have an answer truly to retake the site. And it's difficult. You know, smoke's down, you can't see from the left side of the site, paranoia on the right side of the site. If you're standing there in wood trying to provide an angle, you're paranoid. If you're in the back of site leading into Link, you're also paranoid. That paranoia reaches so incredibly far, and it's difficult to hold on to that C site. But you know what they can do? Put Skadoodle on the box, or put an operator on the box, which is what Spider's currently doing, but he's likely going to have to drop off because I don't think he's got an op. If you can put a player there to have that angle instead of Skadoodle here in the sewers, you might have a better shot at defending the C site.
Well, and that's the thing. That's how they started the previous round, but Skadoodle rotated away. Like, that's exactly what you're calling for. I think you're right, is what they had, but they got a little antsy. And then ultimately, Gen.G was able to get on there. This time, it's going to be an aggressive push through garage. You see members of T1 begin to rotate over the camera, not spotting anything across B as Gen.G. They could still pull out at this point and rotate back towards B or even A. We haven't seen much of that. And that looks like it's exactly what they're doing.
It's a little bit easier for the defense to retake the A site more than the C site, because if you lose garage control, good luck. They can just hold you in the back of sight. T1 managed to make their way onto the C site, anticipating this play. Hwin is going to get traded out, and now the C site hit is going to fall to the wayside. They're going to plant it on the B site. The garage control that they had, they're going to give up and funnel back into the courtyard.
I love it. It was a distraction the entire time. Win dashes in as the sacrificial lamb, and yeah, Guimon was there further down C long to help provide some cover, but if Win dies there, that's fine, right? The purpose was served, the damage was done. Mikhail was able to get one, and Guimon does as well as AZK joins the fray. Gen.G still have control of the B site. T1 down to 2 members left. They're both in the vicinity, but again, the positions that Gen.G have taken on the post plan are just too difficult to deal with. T1 has to back off, and Gen.G's going to pocket another round.
They also had no smokes. No smokes at all. Spider dies in that engagement on the C site. And the most reliable smoke in the game at the current moment is the Omen smoke, considering the range that you could drop it down, probably bigger than the Brimstone smoke range. They did have Skadoodle, but it's not going to be as reliable in that instance, especially in a 2v3. And so Spider down really kind of hurts that retake there. And so once again, it's been 3 in a row, then 3 in a row, then 3 in a row. And so maybe this is T1 answering back with 3 in a row. I have no idea. But even if it's a 9-3 half for T1, it's not the worst case scenario. You know, the attacking half moving into the second half is ultimately going to be a little bit better. But we'll see what this round looks like. Skadoodle starts with the pick. Finally, the Sewers presence pays off. And now Gen.G start with a member down.
Yeah, but look at Gen.G. They're choosing to play into this anyway. They move the drone up. Skadoodle repositions, and he gets another one. Surely, at this point, they're really questioning whether or not this was the right call. Player 1 down as well. Gen.G at this point with 2 members left. What the heck? They might as well. Skadoodle with 4 on the operator. Just serve him up the ace. At this point, Guimon really with no options. It's just going to continue to push forward. He's going to take care of the drone. Smoke is there to at least deny the ace for the time being, but nope.
Okay. I mean, I'd imagine the strategy went something like, okay, team, you know what we need this round? Skadoodle needs Blade Storm. Got it? Good. All right, Skadoodle, just kill everybody, all right? Good. Good plan. No, but I mean, like, the presence towards the A side finally pays off. And guess what Gen.G is never going to do again for the remainder of this half? Guess. Take a wild guess where they're never going to go.
Yeah, they're going to heavily think twice about doing that again. Yep.
And look at how T1 is responding. They're like, yeah, they're not going to hit the A set again. We could just leave it wide open. We're fine. We're chilling. Yeah. Guess what Gen.G are going to do instead?
Well, they're going to answer back. Yeah, and the interesting thing is Skadoodle has repositioned because of what you were just saying, right? Like, surely Gen.G don't think about doing that again, but now they're playing a bit more conservatively. They're waiting. Look at where Win is in the picture-in-picture there, which, thank you, by the way, to the observers. Absolutely spectacular. But they were expecting that there. They see that that's not there. The drone is there to clear things out as well. And Skadoodle, while he was right that time, it's much like the previous rounds in which he's trying to anchor something and he's not going to get a chance.
Yeah, and unfortunately for T1, they're going to be incredibly late to the party. Look at how nobody's moved. They're not sold on this site hit yet, and rightfully so. Gen.G have been faking quite a bit. But at least Brax is going to find an opening pick. Oh my goodness, that is not something you want to happen. Daze is waiting in yellow. The smoke will subside. Oh, Win cannot land that shot either. That is such a bad start. And Daze finds a pick. Of course, it will be traded out in kind, but it's down to 2 final players, Sean and company. Sean's going to find one. The shock dart takes him down to 65. As Guimon will start to wrap all the way back around. They've got membership on the site. The spike is ticking. But Guimon is coming in from behind. Brax is going to spot him out, and now it's down to the 2v2. Daze will trade him 1 for 1 for 1 for 1. And guess who wins? It's T1.
Both Omens were on flank positions there. You saw Spider use his ult to get smack dab in the middle of a long. He was able to take one player. Meanwhile, Guimon makes his way through B window, wraps all the way around, and is in a position to cause serious problems for T1. Both of them positioned there to really cause fits, and it was ultimately Spider who got there first. He was able to impact the play before Guimon was, and at that point, once Guimon got on there, yeah, he was able to get one, but at that point, he was isolated. He got caught with his proverbial pants down, and he got taken care of. That was one of the more explosive rounds we've seen so far when it comes to chess moves, right? Like positioning and playing around the flanks and who's going to catch who and at what the timing is going to look like. That was a very good round by T1.
Oh, the camera, the head wig. And now Daze is like, yeah, I can get this for free. I am alone on this banana side. Player one just plays that so well. But I mean, how often have Gen.G played that A side? Not often. Player one being in that position, there's no way that T1 could have anticipated that unless they had done their homework and tried to clear it out. But Daze was a little bit too confident. And now I think there's a possibility for Gen.G. Their standard C-side hit, which is difficult to retake. Spider and Brax have a difficult job of stopping this push from coming out.
They're going to funnel their way in. Spider's there. He's going to get diced up and taken out. Brax, however, is able to trade that back as members of T1 begin to rotate over onto the C side. But by the time they get there, there's no one left. AZK is going to join the party late. The damage has been done. Gen.G with firm control of the site, and the spike is down. They're going to retreat to their post plants. 2 down C long, or well, 1 down all the way down C long. Sean's going to be a bit closer. You've got Mikael, who's going to be close by. Excuse me, player one is going to be close by as well. The Empress has been used. AZK severely outnumbered here and taken out, half in favor of Gen.G.
Solid work there from Gen.G to close out the half, but now this is where they need to prove that the defense is rock solid. It starts here with the pistol. We'll have a look at some of the replays of the half and identify some of the pain points both teams shared. I think it started off very interesting. Gen.G got off to a hot start, but T1 had some heroics to defend the site. And this A site was difficult for Gen.G to take. In fact, I think every time they tried to go there, it was skadoodle all day. And we're looking at this 4K as well. The ace, actually, sorry. But every time Gen.G hit the C site, T1 did not have a lot of success holding it down. And now we're, of course, moving into the second half. Are we going to see that same look from T1? Is it going to be, you know, are they going to beat their head against the wall, C site, C site, C site? Or are we going to see a couple of different looks to shake things up, or on B site or A site executes?
Remember, T1, well known for their slower, more methodical play on the attacking side, regardless of the map, and this seems to be no different. The spike has not moved. You've got all members spread out as they try to get some info. Brax takes care of Sean early on. Early aggression from Gen.G being punished.
Passive play towards the C site. They know their place, as every team should. The C site, if you could rather avoid dying and retake as a team, it could increase your odds of taking that site back, right? If you die on the site, you're no use to the team. And so a little bit more of a lighter presence towards the C side. Unfortunately, T1 are just fishermen. Gen.G are the fish, catching them in the net, letting them walk forward and play aggressive when they don't need to be. You're on the defense. If you can find some offensive plays, sure. But these individual picks that T1 have found have really hurt Gen.G on this pistol round.
30 seconds left.
Yeah, they certainly have, and that really opens up the map for T1. You mentioned for how long Spider had been hanging out in that C cubby, waiting patiently to ensure that that was the right way to go. It's a high percentage play here, and it's because they've done all their due diligence for the last freaking almost minute and 40 seconds, minute and 30 seconds ultimately, to ensure that that was a safe play. They've gotten onto the site, they've got the spike down as well. Now Gen.G forced to fight for the retake.
Indeed, they do. And we'll see if their retakes fare up and shape up a little bit better than T1's retakes on the C side. So far, that does not seem to be the case. Spider catches player one in his web. 2 players remain, a couple of tags. Mikael just trying to fight Spider off, but Gen.G, in my opinion, are infamous for walking the fine line of letting the spike explode and looking for exits. They play such they play such a pressurized point defense. They're willing to lose the round. They know that they've lost. They're just trying to make it expensive for the opposition, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. Unfortunately, it's all down to the 1v2. Iman holding line, and both omens will remain.
I was mentioning earlier T1's playstyle, particularly on the attacking side, and how it tends to be it could be perceived as being slower. But I think, as I mentioned a bit ago, I just want to take another moment to highlight this. What they're doing is they're ensuring the highest probability play possible, right? It's not like they're just waiting for a minute and 30 seconds, and then they're like, all right, 10 seconds, we got to go, and then just bum rush onto a site. They're being very intentional about the positions that they hold in those minute and 20 seconds, minute and 30 seconds before they make a play. If they can get a pick, great. But they're also able to get information, and oftentimes, like we saw against Complexity, and now like we're seeing from Gen.G, when teams are willing to play this slowly, like T1 is, it's often met with aggression, and they can just sit back and wait and get information and ideally get a pick and then decide where they want to go, like we saw in that previous round. So it may be slower, it may not be as flashy or as exciting, but it's fundamentally sound from T1.
Oh, the Hedwig poking is at through. Does tag one player up, so they know that something's wrong here, but they've got a crossfire set up. Win hasn't gotten involved yet. He's just trying to hold on, but they see the shoulder. And Spider now going to start to wrap around. The A site should be quite clear to take, but they back away, finding a pick onto player one. And considering Spider has gotten so much ground on the C site, they can just wrap their resources back over. A flawless round is far from what Gen.G would have wanted, but that stack around that entryway into the sewers or into Banana really just did not work out well for Gen.G. They got spotted out by Hedwig, and Win, he should have just swung there. There was obviously they were going to spot him out, but rough stuff there for Gen.G.
Yeah, rough stuff. Indeed. It was a tough spot too for Win there. Yeah, we can argue should he have swung. He probably shouldn't have sat on that long, but it was a difficult situation nonetheless. As we near the third round of this half, it's going to be rifles across the board for Gen.G. T1 is still going to have much of their lighter weapons to work with. You see 2 Bulldogs, 2 Spectres, and ultimately a Phantom in the hands of Skadoodle, which, by the way, continuing to perform well. 12-7-2. Brax is doing just fine as well. Gen.G, once again, showing a little bit of early aggression. They got punished by Complexity on this time and time again on Bind, but so far, well, it's a bit of mixed results this time around with Gen.G.
We have to identify the gun round here for Gen.G, so this is their opportunity to regain their lead. But the fact that T1 is caught up, it really just says that this half has been, that first half honestly felt like an even half, even though Gen.G felt like they were in control for most of it, because now it's 7-7. That first half where you were dominant doesn't matter anymore because the game's tied up, and it's all that matters is the second half. So this gun round super important for Gen.G. I'd imagine they should be able to walk away from this one just fine, considering they found an early pick, the double peek down C long. And now T1 just gonna have to deal with this A side hit, and I'd imagine that's where T1 are gonna end up heading over to most often than not. I don't think they're exactly comfortable with the C side hit, but there's a lot that we don't know. I'm just making assumptions based on how they've played these early rounds.
There's a good assumption. Win and player one are able to take
left.
care of 2 members of T1. We mentioned Gen.G with firepower this time around, and it's going about as well as you would expect. T1 down to 2 members left. Yeah, they've managed to get onto the site. At this point, they're looking for the credits to get the spike down. As outnumbered as they are, they've got some weapons to work with. The Bulldog certainly bites there as it takes out Mikhail, but it's going to be traded back. Just 1 member left on the side of T1, and it stays in a corner. He was paranoia. The paranoia wore off, and the bullets did not. Guimon gets the best of him. Gen.G are able to take this bad boy away.
Small window of opportunity to take out a couple of more members with him, I think, for days. But Gen.G just, man, when they are clumped together, they are one of the scariest teams. They work so well. When they are all stuck together as one, as kind of like one giant unit moving like a death ball, just rolling through the map. But T1, as is pretty standard in most of Valorant, you win the first 2, you lose the gun round, and then you have a gun round yourself. So this is where the economy should start to falter, because Gen.G have reset the loss bonus. They should be fine in the round to follow if T1 win, but this is where we start to see the pendulum swing for one team over the other.
And a very similar look from what we've seen for T1 early on. And same goes for Gen.G, really, right? Like, they're going to play aggressively, and they're expecting it. But this time it's Win, who was able to follow up as well. They've previously, excuse me. I got so excited, I just fumbled over my words. They've previously sent 2 down A long. This time they show a bit of a different look, and Win was there for a huge counterpunch.
I feel like Gen.G want to force T1's hand and say, listen, we don't know if you're comfortable with hitting the C site, but we want you to do it. and we're gonna play aggressive in the A sewer every round, even more so aggressive than Skadoodle, because Skadoodle was playing kind of far back in the sewers, right? Like he was waiting for an op shot and then a tailwind over. But we're looking at a completely different look here from Gen.G. They get all up in your business. And yeah, T1's like, okay, well, I guess we go hit the C site. And Gen.G's like, yeah, that's what we wanted you to do. And we're going to hold the line. You shall not pass those two corners there. You're not getting onto the site. We're not going to let you.
No, it's difficult. I think, you know, maybe Days
30
can
seconds left.
sneak a plant somewhere, but yeah, there just aren't very many options for him. He's severely outnumbered. He only has 44 health as well. He has a Phantom and not much money in his pocket, so you imagine he's just going to want to keep this thing. Yeah, that's tough. Guimon swings on him, gives him the business. Left, right, good night. Gen.G win another round.
2,400 credits into the pockets of T1, but it's the pistol here. So Gen.G have an opportunity to enter into double digits. Great opportunity for them here as they want to take us to map 3. You and I had predicted a third map. Bach blindly followed the T1 light into a 2-0 victory here for T1, but at least we're not going to see that potentially this round as they're going to have to save. Still, anything is possible. Drifty rounds have been known to come out of the woodwork from time to time, but statistically, it should be Gen.G's round.
Yeah, the Blade Storm, there it is. I was about to mention it. He has it. So does Win. Can't imagine a world in which Gen.G necessarily wants to use that here. Ideally, they save it for a better time. But for now, T1 really has no choice. Skadoodle, knowing that they don't have much as far as artillery goes, are able to bring a Blade in. They're going to dash directly onto the C site. No presence from Gen.G whatsoever. They're just comfortable fighting for the retake.
Yeah, this is actually a good look for T1. They still have all of their members remaining. Yeah, it's the eco, but this is not bad because they get the credits for the spike plant and they're going to get the loss bonus. That's ultimately what they wanted to try to get their own momentum, combined momentum and pendulum. That's a new word. And Brax is looking for a new word to find out how he found the frenzy frag. Skadoodle finds a second. It's down to 3 for Gen.G. Things are not looking so hot. The paranoia is going to make things worse. It's all down to Mikael. This round slipped away completely. The Thrifty right underneath the nose of Gen.G. They have to be scratching their heads about that one, but the B-side execute is so difficult for the defense to handle. Where do they go? How do they react? Where do they get the setups? How do they retake the site? Well played from T1.
And Simo, sure you remember, Complexity gave Gen.G that look 3 or 4 different times on the attacking side, and every single time, Gen.G wasn't able to handle it, right? Guimon was in a position to be able to respond. There was a camera there. They had all the information that they needed, and they were still not able to trade it back. The problem, in my opinion, was that T1 had too much personnel to work with. When you're setting up for a piece like that, you get the spike down and then you back up, right? You have a spot that you can take care of from window, from garden, to lay fire down on the spike if they try to stick it. T1 just had too much to work with there, and Gen.G wasn't able to handle all of it. T1, you can tell they did their homework. That was a very, very well set play.
Ooh, Win actually makes it onto the site, so the members coming in from C-Long are about to feel a world of pain. Skadoodle's going to be one of those, but as Win tries to escape, once again, he finds himself at the mercy of a couple of bullets. The spike now being planted. Gen.G in the retake, and this is one of the first times that we've seen this gun round versus gun round retake for Gen.G. The spike's been planted. Let's see how they retake the site.
Just like what Gen.G was doing, T1 get the spike down, and then they back off further down Cubby. They have 3 members down there, and one last one on the site. Guimon has been taken out. You've got 2 members of Gen.G who are going to be rotating around from the defending side, so keep a close eye on that. Meanwhile, ideally, you're getting Mikael, who's going to be pushing in from the attacking side at the same time. Sean is able to take care of one of the anchors as Guimon takes care of the other one as well. Spider's one of the last ones standing. The Rolling Thunder's use. Spider trying to stay alive. Somehow is able to win that fight. He dropped things down to 1v1. He's got the Phantom and he clutches it out. Spider with a serious impact for T1.
Oh, he makes it out too. Smooth moves, Spider. We're tied up 9-9. What a crazy round. Gen.G tried to wrap around because you know when you plant the spike, the new and improved default It's no longer in that little corner by the box. It's out in the open, and so you default back to the cubby area. That's where T1 were. All of their members were, but for some reason, T1 have this really strange strategy. I've seen it a couple of rounds now. Every time they hit the C site, they send Spider into the back of site to be the facilitator of that round. And boy, was he. Because Gen.G were like, okay, we got rid of everybody, but there's nobody here. Where's Spider? That's right, you're not going to defuse the spike. And honestly, even if Spider, well, okay, just, yeah, let me finish my thought first, Spider, before you do that. But even if Spider dies there, the spike was 5 seconds left. They wouldn't have had time to defuse.
Right. Gen.G already gotten picked apart, down to 3 members left. They have ultimates, but they don't have a ton else pistols in tow. Skadoodle with the operator holding things down. Seems like they think it's a bit of a sniff. Spidey sense is tingling over by C, but that's not where the spike is headed. And sure enough, Gen.G begin to rotate out. The problem is Brax has aggressively positioned himself at a pivot point, unfortunately just narrowly missing the timing on the rotation from Gen.G.
Missing the rotation indeed. Oh,
he's
Brax is about to be spotted out. Oh, but he does the spotting instead. Sprays through the wall there. Gives a lot of space for the team, but he gets taken down. So still they'll have control of this A site, but a 3v3 shock darts are definitely going to hurt. And of course the Hunter's Fury from Mikael to push them off of the plant spot. There's going to be a teleport back behind enemy lines. It doesn't really get quite far, but Gen.G can have a thrifty round of their own up and coming right here.
13 seconds left. The spike is finally going to go down. AZK holding things down intel. As the crossfire comes in, AZK gets 1. Gen.G just down to 2 members left. A difficult situation. They just don't have a ton of room to work with at all. Sean's the last one standing. He's got a sheriff, and he's not even going to get a chance to make that bad boy sing. Skadoodle with the operator takes care of things. T1 continue to build the lead.
There was a thrifty several rounds ago from T1 that could have put Gen.G to double digits. They were sitting at it was like 9-7, I think. And that was the round that T1 flipped the script. And now here we are, T1, 1-round lead, 2 to sit comfortably. Gen.G need to win this round. If you're a Gen.G fan, you're repping Canada, this is the round Gen.G need to win, because that puts T1 at 11-9. Economy is going to once again be broken down for Gen.G, and they won't have a lot to work with. They'll leave it up potentially to match point and series point for T1. Gen.G need to hold strong.
Once again, slow and steady wins the race for T1. At least that's the mantra for them, as they have not inched ever closer. No information has been gathered, right? There's no pushing up either way, and then honestly on the side of Gen.G, there's nothing that's being risked. There's no aggressive play that's happening there. There's nobody pushing up. Jeez, there's nobody pushing up a long win with a huge opening pick onto Dazed.
That's what they needed. And T1 were just trying to make sure that the B site was a possibility, and the fact that Win is able to take out Dazed means it's no longer a possibility. But this time, considering Spider hasn't done a lot of work to push up the C site and Gen.G have a lot of presence there, they can only imagine it's going to be the A site, right?
30
if
seconds
Spider
left.
starts to poke his head in and you know, they trade 1-for-1, then the question becomes, will they hit the C site? But the fact that he's not there, and the fact that they haven't gathered a lot of information, this A site's about to come in fast.
Yeah, Sean is able to get one, but he gets traded out. Mikael and Win, both initial anchors there, but Brax gets 3. Are you kidding me? He's managed to stop the defenses. The members of Gen.G are going to have to rotate over, but by the time they show up, the spike is going to be down. Guimon's going to be the first one there. As player 1 begins to rotate over as well, there's nobody coming in behind them. Player 1 and Guimon both have to focus on the site here, but they're outnumbered, Simo.
They may want to save the weapons. The economy is not going to be amazing. I think they should be able to at least be relatively competitive moving into the next one, but they don't want to slip away. Player 1 hops in, almost finds the frag. It's all down to Guimon, and they will lose every single weapon for Gen.G. T1 11-9. Some members on the Gen.G roster are going to be worse for wear. Guimon at 2,900, Mikael at 24. It's not looking good for Gen.G. They're going to have to try to piece it together. The Salvation Army is not going to be kind, but look, they might be soft buying. They're going to chalk it up to a potential 12-9. No, Gen.G, no!
T1 are going to have the artillery to push the situation further. Gen.G have shown us an aggressive look down A. This time, once again, not the case. Win already being punished. He only had a sheriff, I understand that, but that's a costly opening pick given what's at stake.
Spider.
Oh, boy.
Oh, Spider! Oh, the fly gets caught in the web. Player 1 down for the count. Brack's gonna find another. Guimon is looking to answer back. But the Vandal is mightier than the Stinger. A flawless round for T1. The economy is not shaken. 9,000 credits for Brax and Skadoodle at the start of this round. Twitch chat across the world is shaking as Gen.G are on the verge. A team I did not think would be eliminated is about to be sent home.
Okay, Gen.G have guns here, right? Let's take a look at what they're going to be bringing in. And it looks like we're in a tactical pause as well.
Of course. Of course.
Given what's at stake, 1,000% understand. We'll find out very soon who the tactical pause is from. We presume it's from Gen.G, but we'll confirm as soon as we can. 5 rounds in a row for T1. They're going to have guns and armor to work with. They've got everything that they could possibly want. On the other side, as we mentioned, it's going to be guns across the board, win the one exception. Well, he's going to have the operator, and he's going to be bringing in light armor as well. Simo, much like we saw 2 rounds ago, and last round really, early on in this half, it was aggression out of Gen.G, right? Push down A, through a short and a long, see if they can catch anyone slipping. For the last couple of rounds, it's been far more conservative from Gen.G, realizing what's at stake here. This one's a tough one. Oh no. This is an no! And Skadoodle punishes it!
Oh my goodness. If you had paid attention to how Gen.G set up that round, Quinn was ready to do the sewers play. That's where he was going to set up. But the tactical pause, they put 3 members in the courtyard for Gen.G. They wanted to take out Skadoodle early. Guess what they didn't do? Skadoodle is still alive, unharmed, and Win will have to watch his team 5v4 from the sidelines. T1 in a power play position to close this map out.
Oh man, AZK just got the Rolling Thunder as well. Things are piling up against Gen.G more and more as every second passes. An early look down C long, then they begin to rotate away, but they got the orb that they were looking for. It looks like this may be a piece onto A the entire time, as we see Brax has been sitting there waiting to see if anyone's going to push up aggressively down A, as we have seen time and time again. This time not the case. Oh baby, this one's going down on A.
There's a lot of time left, 30 seconds.
30 seconds
Not
left.
enough time, I think, to hightail it over towards the C site. Smokes are down. Mikael is going to need to call the reinforcements soon, as the site is going to be wide open for T1.
Spike planted.
Shock darts won't injure Spider. And now it is up to how T1 wants to play this. They've got a lot of membership towards that long side. It isn't plant. Well, I mean, it's technically planted for long because it's the default plant spot, but Gen.G are going to have to work their way in.
Dave's playing in short, needs to be careful as player 1 is starting to creep his way up towards A. The rest of the members of Gen.G begin to funnel in. Sean's able to get an important opening pick, but AZK trades it right back out on the flank. There's no additional pressure coming in from any other side. It's just it. They're going to start to defuse it, and the Rolling Thunder comes in, but Sean manages to dodge it. Daze is able to pick them apart, though, as he gets 2. The Bladestorm is there. Sean with 3. I don't know that he's going to have enough time. Ladies and gentlemen, it might not matter. It's probably down to a 1v1. Sean does it, but it does not matter. T1 eliminate Gen.G.
Oh my goodness. At the beginning of the series, at the beginning of this map, we called Bach. He said, I don't know if this is going to be done, but I'm predicting a 2-0, and the Mad Lad has done it. T1. What a victory. What a convincing solid performance out of them. We're going to bring Bach back in with his bag of goodies. What? Like, I don't. Me and Doug are speechless. We're going to have to let you take this one away. Bach, we're done. It's over. We're finished.
Oh, I thought you wanted me to get into the bag of goodies. I mean, that match was a bag of goodies in and of itself. I feel like Gen.G and T1 really put on a show, even though Gen.G does end up falling, surprisingly getting eliminated. That's a bit of a shock, personally. I thought that this team would be potentially a favorite, honestly. After watching them play through the open qualifier and how well they were destroying their opposition, especially that win over Sentinels, to me, that was a big part of that. You know, we watched this team for a while, and even just talking to them on a personal level, they would have admitted several months ago that Sentinels has always been their kryptonite. They've struggled to defeat them in a best of 3. So to see that big win that they picked up during the open qualifier, despite the fact that both teams had already qualified, I mean, I thought that was certainly something to potentially point towards future successes, but Gen.G knocked out during the group stages. That's a bit disappointing. I mean, Doug, what on earth happened as we take a look at the replay to kind of get an idea of what it was that went wrong for Gen.G?
I'm just speechless right now. And the crazy thing is, I won't get to that point yet. I think Gen.G showed a couple of different looks, right? Like we saw a couple of late game heroics from player 1 as we're seeing there on Ascent. And we saw a little bit of action there on Haven as well. There were highlight plays from the squad, but it just didn't come together. And, you know, as we saw at the end of the Haven map, as Simo called out, it was a different look that they considered, right? They opted to reposition and to go aggressive down mid, and that was a huge opening pick. They did not catch them guessing like they thought they would.
You know, I love Gen.G, so it's heartbreaking to see them get eliminated, especially now, because I feel like everything's coming together a little bit with that Sean pickup, but you still can't help but root for T1. Like, you want to see this roster work out, and, you know, sure, it's not exactly the position maybe you'd want to see them in an elimination game against Gen.G, but now they get to play further into the bracket and prove that there's still some life left for these players who have been around the scene for a little bit longer, both in CSGO and other titles like Overwatch, and even into less obscure titles because of, you know, what had happened with them during their CSGO careers. But Simo, I mean, this is a tough loss for us to, like, you know, really praise T1 over, because we've been watching Gen.G for so long, and we want to see that success for them that we haven't seen in quite some time.
And there's also been an incredible amount of criticism from the Valoranting show, which I totally agree with, how T1 does not really participate in a lot of the Tier 2 events.
100%.
Like, they come to some of the Ignition series, but they've been relatively quiet throughout the entire Ignition series journey. And I mean, whatever they've been working on in the workshop has definitely come to fruition here. They move on, they qualify for top 8, but I think the most important story for me is that Skadoodle has kind of broken up out of his shell. He's really grown as a player, as a Jet player now, really has just popped off and has been given so many tools to find success in the operator position, because like we had highlighted at the beginning of the series, it was relatively lackluster at the beginning of the T1's roster's inception.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. I think that early on when T1 first brought him in, we expected to see a little bit more than maybe we got out of him. But since he's come back to the roster and found stable footing, I wouldn't say he's on par with like what Wardell was early on for the Mousepaz then TSM roster, but he's definitely getting more towards a stable operator role position. And you can see his stats there as the Jet, 18 and 11. Brax, who we had profiled coming into this as well, 19 and 14 in that final map. Sean, on the flip side, a little bit quieter, but still, you look at the distribution across both teams, it's actually pretty even. When you look at both teams, like, we don't see someone really pulling out ahead with like a 25-plus kill game, and we don't see someone really struggling and falling behind. Yeah, Mikael doesn't have the greatest game at 8 and 15, neither does Dave's, so the Sova's struggling to get involved in the action when they start matching up against the duelists. But still, I mean, I don't think I can look at either of those players and say they played poorly. And I'm excited to see what T1's got. You know, I don't want to make it sound like, oh, it's a bummer, you know, we don't get to see Gen.G, boo-hoo. Because the truth is, we still get to see a pretty awesome showing from T1, and we get to see what this roster is truly capable of as they continue to march through, potentially into the bracket play, further and further and further. The question here is, Simo, how much further can T1 push this? Is there more? Can we expect to see something even better from T1 as we march into the playoffs tomorrow?
I think it ultimately is going to depend on who is their opposition that they're matched up against. If they find themselves at the mercy of like TSM or Cloud9, yeah, good luck. That's going to be a tough match to face, and those are some of the
Yeah.
best teams in. And even Sentinels, if they've woken up as well. If you find yourself at the mercy of the Sentinels, you've got a difficult matchup ahead. So I think it ultimately all boils down to who they face. And in that RNG, in that luck of who they end up facing, will be the make or break as to either if they get an automatic qualification to close qualifier number 2, or if they book their ticket directly to the first ever big Valorant major. That it's all gonna hang in the balance of who they get to face, and I think that's difficult to chalk it up to. I think if you're T1.
Now, you said RNG. You were speaking of random number generation, but we do have Renegades coming up after this. That's another RNG. But before we go ahead and throw things to our break, I want to take one more dip into the GoPuff bag. Again, I have this wonderful big bag of stuff courtesy of GoPuff. GoPuff, of course, the official delivery partner of Nerd Street Gamers. Use code NerdStreet to get $4 off your first 4 orders. You know, I've had this big item in the bag for a while, and I think it might be a good idea for me to finally bust it out. This is an adult-sized T-Rex costume. Now, maybe, just maybe, I'll put this on before we come back from the break, and I will host the next section in a T-Rex costume. But you guys, unfortunately, will be watching, as I believe you are done for the day. So you can go ahead and sit back, get yourself a nice cup of tea, and enjoy the memes. After we come back from this break, we'll be jumping into TSM versus Renegades here on the mainstream. It'll be me, it'll be Avril, and it'll be Shift taking over for the likes of Doug and Simo. Hope you'll stay with us after the break. Stay tuned.